Every NFL team has had that one moment, the one they wish nobody had ever seen, the one that plays on a loop in every highlight reel of shame, the one that lives rent-free in rival fans' heads forever. Some of these moments were blunders so spectacular they stopped time. Some were collapses so brutal they redefined what it means to lose. And some were so historically catastrophic they became part of the cultural language of failure. Today we're counting down 12 NFL teams' most embarrassing moments on live TV. Moments that were broadcast to millions. Moments you simply cannot unsee. Number 12. New York Jets. The Butt Fumble. Thanksgiving night, 2012, over 20 million people tuned into MetLife Stadium expecting a football game, and they got something far more unforgettable. Jets quarterback Mark Sanchez took a snap, turned the wrong way on a completely broken play, and ran directly into the backside of his own offensive lineman Brandon Moore. The ball popped loose. Patriots safety Steve Gregory scooped it up and walked into the end zone, and the entire national broadcast audience went into disbelief. But it didn't stop there, because within 52 seconds of game time, the Jets also surrendered 2 more touchdowns off separate fumbles. The Patriots outscored New York 35-3 in the second quarter alone, and the final score read Patriots 49, Jets 19. The sight of Sanchez clutching his helmet, standing in the wreckage of arguably the most slapstick play in NFL history, was almost too painful to watch. ESPN's SportsCenter ran the Butt Fumble on their Not Top 10 segment for 40 consecutive weeks without it ever being knocked off the top spot. Sanchez later said it himself, "I ran into some guy's butt, dropped the ball on the turf, and some guy scored. And on my favorite holiday." That single play became ESPN's most replayed lowlight of all time and permanently defined a franchise era. Number 11. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, losing their first 26 games. When the Tampa Bay Buccaneers entered the NFL as an expansion team in 1976, nobody expected greatness, but nobody could have predicted quite this level of catastrophe. The Bucs went 0-14 in their entire first season, becoming the first team since the merger to go completely winless in a full regular season. They were shut out 11 times, outscored 412 to 125, and gave up an average of 29.4 points per game while scoring fewer than 9. Then, in 1977, they came back and lost their first 12 games again, extending the streak to 26 consecutive losses, the longest in modern NFL history. Week after week, live on national television, an NFL franchise was being embarrassed in ways that defied football logic. They didn't just lose games. They were dismantled, demoralized, and disemboweled in front of the whole country. It wasn't until December the 11th, 1977, that the Buccaneers finally beat the New Orleans Saints 33-14 and ended the suffering. NFL Network later produced a documentary on the 0-26 era. ESPN commemorated the 38th anniversary of that 26th consecutive loss. And coach John McKay's now legendary response when asked about his team's execution, "I'm in favor of it," became one of the most famous quips in sports broadcasting history. Drop your team's most embarrassing live TV moment in the comments below. If enough people respond, we will do a part 2 covering the remaining 20 franchises. Because every team has a skeleton in the closet, and we will find every single one of them. Number 10. Denver Broncos. Super Bowl 48. Peyton Manning's 2013 Denver Broncos were supposed to be unstoppable, the highest-scoring offense in NFL history, at 606 points, the statistical dynasty that no defense could contain, and they walked into Super Bowl 48 as heavy favorites. It took exactly 12 seconds for everything to collapse. The opening snap sailed over Manning's head and into the end zone for a safety, and from that moment, the Seattle Seahawks never stopped, never slowed, never even flinched. Seattle led 22-0 at halftime, then 36-0 before Denver scored their first and only touchdown. And the final score of 43-8 became one of the 3 biggest blowouts in Super Bowl history. Over 111.5 million people watched live on FOX as the most celebrated quarterback of his generation was completely dismantled by a defense that looked like it was playing a different sport entirely. Denver Post columnist Mark Kisla captured the moment precisely. It took Peyton Manning 37 years to build a reputation as the best quarterback in NFL history, and only 12 seconds in the Super Bowl to fumble it away. Manning himself, when pressed by reporters, said calling it embarrassing would be an insulting word. The loss redefined how we think about favorite versus underdog Super Bowl narratives, and remains the most lopsided championship defeat by an offensive juggernaut in NFL history. Number 9. Buffalo Bills, Super Bowl 27. The Buffalo Bills had already lost 2 consecutive Super Bowls and were desperate for redemption when they faced the Dallas Cowboys on January 31st, 1993, at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. What followed was not redemption. It was a complete and total disintegration in front of a massive Super Bowl audience. The Bills committed a Super Bowl record 9 turnovers, 9, and the Cowboys converted them into points with surgical efficiency, with Dallas quarterback Troy Aikman completing 22 of 30 passes for 4 touchdowns and claiming MVP honors while the Bills collapsed 52-17, the most lopsided loss in franchise postseason history. There was a brief moment of false hope at 31-17 entering the fourth quarter. Then Buffalo gave up 3 more touchdowns, and the cameras stayed on every painful second. It was the third of 4 consecutive Super Bowl losses, a record no team in NFL history has ever matched, and one that Bills fans carry like a weight that never quite lifts. The image of Don Beebe chasing down Cowboys linebacker Leon Lett to strip the ball at the goal line was the lone bright moment of dignity in an otherwise historically public national embarrassment. Number 8. Atlanta Falcons, the 28-3 collapse, Super Bowl 51. There is no bigger number in the history of professional sports humiliation than 28-3, and it belongs entirely to the Atlanta Falcons. Midway through the third quarter of Super Bowl 51 in Houston, the Falcons led the New England Patriots by that staggering margin. Win probability models gave Atlanta a greater than 99% chance of victory, and FOX's broadcast audience, one of the largest in Super Bowl history, fully expected to watch Matt Ryan lift the Lombardi Trophy. Then, the Patriots scored 31 unanswered points. A key holding penalty killed a drive Atlanta desperately needed in the final 6 minutes. Matt Ryan was sacked for a massive loss at the worst possible moment, and the game went to the first overtime in Super Bowl history where New England scored immediately to win 34-28. Not a single team in Super Bowl history had ever blown a lead of that magnitude. CBS Sports declared it one of the biggest choke jobs in sports history, and they were not exaggerating. The numbers 28-3 instantly became global cultural shorthand for catastrophic failure, used in completely unrelated contexts, memed endlessly, and weaponized by Patriots fans for years. Ryan was named MVP of a Super Bowl nobody remembers him winning, and the Falcons have not won a single playoff game since. If you're still watching, you already know this list is only getting more painful from here. So do yourself a favor and drop a like on this video right now. It genuinely helps the channel more than you know. And comment below which team's moment you think is the most embarrassing of all time. We'll be reading every single reply. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we drop NFL history videos every single week and you do not want to miss what's coming next. The most controversial Super Bowl calls of all time is already in production, and it is going to hurt some feelings. Number 7. Detroit Lions, the 0-16 season. The Detroit Lions didn't just have a bad season in 2008. They made history in the worst possible way, becoming the only team in the 16-game era to lose every single regular season game. Under head coach Rod Marinelli, the Lions dropped all 16 games, including a nationally broadcast Thanksgiving Day game that served as a live television symbol of the franchise's rock bottom. Quarterback Dan Orlovsky added his own infamous chapter when he ran directly out of the back of his own end zone for a safety against the Minnesota Vikings, unaware he had crossed the goal line, in a moment broadcast nationally and replayed endlessly. The 0-16 record was the culmination of years of organizational failure stretching back to the 2001 hiring of Matt Millen as general manager, a tenure that produced a 31-84 record before his dismissal. No matter what the Lions do going forward, 2008 will follow them forever. Bleacher Report ranked it one of the biggest franchise embarrassments in NFL history. The Orlovsky safety clip remains one of the most watched individual lowlights on NFL's YouTube to this day, and Orlovsky himself, now an ESPN analyst, has addressed it publicly on air multiple times because the football world simply will not let it go. Number 6. Seattle Seahawks, the goal line call, Super Bowl 49. The Seattle Seahawks were 36 inches from back-to-back Super Bowl titles, Marshawn Lynch in the backfield, 1 yard to win, the dynasty within reach. Instead of handing the ball to Lynch, the most dominant goal line runner in the league, offensive coordinator Darrell Bevell called a quick slant pass with 26 seconds left, and the Seahawks trailing 28-24. Undrafted rookie cornerback Malcolm Butler, who had not recorded a single NFL interception before that night, read the play perfectly, jumped the route, and intercepted Russell Wilson at the goal line. It was the only interception thrown from the 1-yard line in 109 attempts across the entire 2014 NFL season. The play was witnessed live by 114.4 million viewers on NBC, the largest Super Bowl audience in history to that point, and the reaction from Pete Carroll, visibly stunned on the sideline and unable to process what had just happened, was almost harder to watch than the interception itself. Emmitt Smith called it the worst play call in the history of football. ESPN's Ian O'Connor labeled it the worst Super Bowl play of all time, and Carroll himself eventually admitted on a podcast, it just was the worst play that could have ever happened. Butler's interception became one of the most watched clips in Super Bowl history and permanently colored the legacy of a Seahawks team that deserved to be remembered as a dynasty. Number 5. Las Vegas Raiders. The Tuck Rule Game. On a snowy January night in Foxborough, the Oakland Raiders were minutes away from the AFC Championship game when the most controversial officiating call in NFL playoff history was made live on national television. Leading the Patriots 13-10 with under 2 minutes to play, cornerback Charles Woodson strip-sacked Tom Brady. The ball came loose, Raiders linebacker Greg Biekert recovered it, and the game appeared to be over. Officials reviewed the play, then invoked the tuck rule, an obscure regulation stating that any arm motion by a quarterback tucking the ball back to his body is still classified as a forward pass, reversed the fumble call, and handed New England the ball back. The Patriots kicked a field goal, won in overtime, and went on to win the Super Bowl. Millions watching on CBS saw one of the most disputed decisions in postseason history unfold in real time, with no recourse and no explanation that satisfied anyone. The tuck rule was so widely mocked after that night that the NFL officially abolished it in 2013. Brady himself, years later, acknowledged the Raiders probably should have had the ball. The game is simply known as the Tuck Rule Game in NFL history, a permanent monument to a call that no longer even exists in the rulebook. Number 4. Dallas Cowboys, the 1-15 season. America's team, 5 Super Bowl titles, one of the most iconic brand identities in professional sports, went 1-15 in 1989 and did it very publicly. Jerry Jones had just purchased the franchise and installed Jimmy Johnson as head coach in a move that shocked the NFL establishment, and the team responded by losing their first 11 games of the season. They beat Washington in Week 6 for their only win, then proceeded to lose everything else, finishing last in the NFC East and posting the worst record of any Cowboys season in franchise history. Game after game, live on network television, one of the most recognizable uniforms in football was attached to one of the most embarrassing products on the field, and the cameras never looked away. The painful irony is that the 1989 disaster directly enabled the dynasty that followed. The draft capital accumulated in that wreckage helped build 3 Super Bowl titles in 4 years. Johnson later said the season was necessary, but watching it happen week after week, with America's team star on your helmet and a 1-15 record on the board, was its own unique and very public form of humiliation. Number 3. Tennessee Titans. Bud Adams' double middle fingers on live TV. Most embarrassing NFL moments involve players or coaches, but on November the 15th, 2009, the Tennessee Titans' most humiliating live TV moment came directly from the owner's box. Following a Titans victory over the Buffalo Bills, owner Bud Adams was caught on multiple cameras, broadcast live, giving double middle fingers directly to the Bills fans in the stands, an extended, deliberate, unmistakable gesture from one of the most powerful men in the league, in full view of the stadium and the television audience. It was not a flash reaction. It was not ambiguous. It was sustained, visible, and aired on national sports broadcasts within hours. The NFL fined Adams $250,000, one of the largest personal conduct fines ever levied on an owner at the time, and the video was replayed across every major sports network for days. No coherent explanation was ever offered beyond a vague apology statement. For a franchise that has spent decades trying to establish a serious football identity in a new market, having the owner double-bird opposing fans on national television was a reputational crater that took years to fade and has never fully disappeared from the public record. Number 2. Philadelphia Eagles. Snowballing Santa Claus. December the 15th, 1968, Franklin Field, Philadelphia, Eagles versus Minnesota Vikings, and by halftime the home crowd had seen enough. With the Eagles losing badly and frustration boiling over on a cold, snowy afternoon, the halftime entertainment brought out a mock Santa Claus, a teenage boy named Frank Olivo, who had been recruited from the stands to fill in for an absent performer. And the fans of Philadelphia did what Philadelphia fans do. They pelted him with snowballs, not a few isolated throws, but a sustained volley of ice and snow hurled at a teenager dressed as Father Christmas in front of a national television audience. The images captured that day became one of the most replayed moments of fan infamy in professional sports history and circulated nationally within days. More than 55 years later, the Snowball Santa story is still the first thing mentioned whenever Philadelphia fan behavior comes up in any sports conversation. It has been referenced in TV shows, documentaries, rival fan chants, and media profiles of the city's sporting culture more times than can be counted. The Eagles have won a Super Bowl since, but the whole country still remembers that afternoon in December, and so does Santa. Number 1. Cleveland Browns, the 0-16 season. The Detroit Lions made history in 2008 by going winless, but when the Cleveland Browns went 0-16 in 2017, they did it with a level of total organizational failure that stands completely alone in the modern NFL. The Browns didn't just lose games, they lost them with remarkable consistency and breathtaking breadth, cycling through 2 head coaches during the season, producing an offense so historically inept it shattered franchise records for futility that may never be broken, and doing all of it on national television week after week after week. Their 2016 season before it was 1-15, meaning Cleveland went 1-31 across 2 years, one single win in 32 games, each of which was broadcast live to a fan base that had endured decades of disappointment. The organization's response was so thoroughly mocked that fans held a satirical parade to celebrate the winless season, with floats and signs and a complete joyless resignation that went viral worldwide. The franchise that once fielded Jim Brown and Bernie Kosar had reached a place so low it became a punchline not just in Cleveland, but across the entire country. ESPN, NFL Network, and every major sports outlet ran features on the Browns' futility as it unfolded in real time across the broadcast calendar. The 0-16 2017 Browns are not just the most embarrassing moment in Cleveland history. They are arguably the most thoroughly documented, most publicly broadcast, most nationally discussed single-season collapse in the history of the National Football League. And that is why they sit at number 1. Every franchise on this list had to live through their moment in real time. No edits, no second takes, just the cameras rolling and the whole country watching. The brutal truth of the NFL is that these moments don't disappear. They get replayed. They get memed. They get brought up every single time the team is mentioned in the wrong context. And they shape the identity of a franchise for decades whether the people involved like it or not. So here's the question we're leaving you with. Which one of these 12 moments do you think was the most embarrassing in NFL history? And does your team have a moment that should have made this list? Drop it in the comments below, because some of the ones we couldn't fit deserve their own video. If this video made you cringe, laugh, or feel genuinely awful for any of these fan bases, hit that like button right now. It takes 2 seconds, and it helps this channel reach more football fans who need to experience this pain with us.